Am I the a-hole for telling my wife to tell her mom to move out of our home after she decided to leave all inheritance to her brother? Posted by Old Memory 1603. Me, 32, wife 30, brother/brother-in-law 27, MIL late 50s. My FIL recently passed and left a very sizable life insurance policy to his son and wife, MIL. My wife received nothing. We understood this because her brother, 27, is not the brightest and still lives at home. He never goes out and only goes to work and back home to play video games all day. They both recently moved into our home as they were too distraught to continue living in the home my FIL passed in. My FIL was truly the only adult in the home and was responsible for taking care of everything. He even drove my MIL to and from work on a daily basis, a responsibility that has now been passed on to my wife. I have since taken over the estate planning, such as paying bills, swapping over policies, etc. My MIL doesn't speak English and doesn't drive, so as family, it was my pleasure to take on this responsibility. After a month and a half, I finally settled all the bills, funeral planning, etc., and all the heavy lifting complete. I do not say it lightly, but without me, the family would be lost on what to do. For example, they did not even know where he worked, and were surprised to find out he even had a life insurance policy. Both do not have any retirement plans or savings. I suggested a shared bank account for my wife and her mom to put the payout into, where it will accrue interest but also to pay off bills every month. MIL had no bank account before. It was at this point MIL says she would rather have her daughter not on the account and wants to give her portion of the payout to her son and have him set up with a savings account. She says this because since me and my wife have a home, that it would be better used on her brother. We do have a home, but we are by no means rich. In fact, them moving in would help us out financially as there would be extra income from them paying rent. I expressed to my wife that leaving everything to him would be incredibly irresponsible because then he will be left the family home and the payout, but mainly because he cannot do anything for himself and cannot be trusted with the money. I say this because of things I have learned about him. He does not have a driver's license but drives a car to and from work, never helped with the estate, and something I learned was that he has a large amount of cash in his checking account. He has never had a girlfriend, and since I've known him, has shown no signs of ever wanting to move out. The large bank balance worried me because when I asked him about this, he told me he just had no idea what to do with it and has no concept of retirement planning, since his parents took care of all the bills and all he did was pay some of the mortgage, go to work, and then go home to play video games all day. My wife was also there when her mom had breast cancer and took her to and from every single appointment, to the point of using all her vacation/sick days to help during this time. Her brother is not a bad guy, in fact, he's a great friend, but he just doesn't ever seem like he will grow up to be a responsible person. I told my wife that after agreeing to take them in and have them live with us, that it would be a slap in the face to be left nothing. So I told her that her mother and brother should move back to their home and use the money from the payout to help them live with the absence of my FIL. She was then furious with me and said all I care about is money, even though I feel that this is not so much about money, but that there's a complete lack of respect with being shown nothing for all the help we have and will be giving. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? Answer: not the a-hole, but I read this through a unique lens, and there may be layers here that complicate things. When you say BIL is not bright, are you referring to a cognitive disability? If one adult child has a disability, it could be a valid reason not to split assets 50-50. That said, it would be important to establish a trust and do it appropriately so that BIL is not able to squander his security. OP response: I would say he is not bright in the sense that he is still living as if he were a teenager. He has no concept of paying bills, and money doesn't seem important to him as he was always taken care of by his parents. All he had worried about in his adult life were paying his share of the mortgage and which new PS5 game to get. I would go as far as to say that he may be autistic. Truly, this entire month and a half, I've only ever seen him when he goes to the kitchen for food and going to and from work. Pipit4 comments: you need to sit down with your wife and have a real conversation about what your lives are going to look like. She might be okay with you/her taking care of her mother and brother forever, but it sounds like you are not. This is a massive burden, both financial and on your time. Are you planning on having kids? Are you planning on being okay with living with them forever? What happens if your BIL is arrested for driving without a license? What do you picture your life like in 10 years, in 20 years? Is this really about the money, or is it about the burden long term? Honestly, all of this is something you need to work out with your wife. Reddit probably can't help. I'd suggest booking a couples counseling session to work through all of these issues. Sounds like you really might need help with communicating and figuring out a plan that works for both of you. Update me. OP response. We were both happy to have them here for as long as they needed. This is something we were both accustomed to growing up. But knowing that at the drop of a dime, should the brother want to, he can walk away with a hefty savings account and house in his name, while leaving his mother with us to take care of, seems a bit wrong, IMO. The driving without a license really scares me, as another commenter mentioned any accident caused by him would lead to him losing his inheritance. These are good questions to think of. Itchier Bumworms comments. If the only reason you took them in, it would let them stay was to have access to the funds, then yeah, you're an a-hole. OP response. We took them in before we even knew there was any cash involved. I only found out about the life insurance policy well into figuring out the estate stuff. Shy FDX1 comments. Not the a-hole. So many parents do this, punish the responsible child and shower the irresponsible child with all their money. Unless the other child is mentally handicapped, then they trained him to be irresponsible. He had no reason to take care of himself. An inheritance is a last communication of the deceased's feelings for each child. Disinheriting your wife to give it all to the son, yet expecting you and your wife to put in hours of work every week for the rest of your MIL's life is deeply hurtful and insulting. I'm sorry, but you need to disentangle yourself and your wife from their mess. Both MIL and BIL are using you and your wife. You helped them so long that now they feel entitled. MIL has lived there too many years to still not speak the language, leaving her dependent on you. Sign her up for English classes. MIL is not handicapped. She can learn how to drive or have her son drive her everywhere. There is no excuse for her to not have known where her late husband worked. That makes it sound like she viewed him as just a resource too. By moving in, MIL and BIL became your dependents. They just inherited a house and money, and both are ambulatory adults. Move them right back out. If they stay, it will ruin your marriage. You and your wife are immediate family. They are extended family. OP response. You've hit the nail on the head with practically every point. I've even suggested having MIL get a job in town so she can take the bus, but even that has been struck down because they might only offer a part-time work. No Shock 2055 comments. Not the a-hole. Let your wife start handling everything for her family. If she wants to be a slave for them, let her. You don't have to. And the idea that the only way you can prove you love your wife is by being a doormat for their family is twisted. OP response. I wouldn't want my wife to have this burden either. She currently has to wake up an hour earlier to take her mom to work and spend another hour picking up her mom after she finishes work. I just think she doesn't see how I am being treated as a doormat. Edit. I would like to add that their plan for their family home would be to rent it out. They purchased it before interest rates went up a few years ago and would be set to make $1,000 cash profit every month. Second edit. A lot of people are asking, so I'll clear it up. We didn't even know about any life insurance policy when we took them in. It was only after very extensive digging through his records that I found out there was such a policy. Third edit. I would like to add that my wife thinks this isn't the right move to leave them to fend for themselves because her brother and mom are not able to communicate effectively if needed. She only speaks Spanish and he only speaks English, but does understand Spanish and can say simple words like yes or no in Spanish, so he would be unable to have in-depth conversations about any planning. That is where I have been serving as a bridge, albeit without any input from the brother as he hasn't been involved with any planning as it doesn't seem too important to him.